Hello, welcome to this lesson. In the previous lesson, I taught you fisheries, where I explained the meaning of fishery. We examined some common types of fishes and identified their scientific names, and we also look into other aquatic food organisms, that is, other organisms that can be used as food by man. In this lesson, I will be teaching animal diseases and parasites. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to define animal diseases, state the types of animal diseases, state ways of identifying a sick or diseased animal, and lastly, identify sources that animals can contract diseases. Our topic for this week is animal diseases and parasites. But in this lesson, I will be teaching you animal diseases. What are diseases? The term disease refers to an abnormality in the health which can lead to a deviation in the normal performance of an organism. That is, it can result to a decrease in performance of that organism. The types of diseases of farm animals. We shall be considering quite some types of diseases, but before that, we shall be placing them into categories. Diseases in general can be classified according to their causes into pathogenic diseases, nutritional deficiency diseases, and diseases that can be caused by inanimate objects such as environments and chemicals. Organisms that can cause pathogenic diseases include the following. The first one is virus. The second is bacteria. Also, we have fungi, protozoans. Now, aside these four main types, there are other larger organisms such as tick, lice, worms that are also capable of causing diseases to farm animals. Nutritional deficiency diseases, another category. They are diseases that can be caused by lack, excess, or imbalance in nutrients. That is either the food supply to farm animals is inadequate or is too much in some particular nutrients, and this can cause abnormality, a deviation from normal health of the farm animals. Now, how does diseases get to farm animals? We're going to consider ways in which diseases can get to farm animals. That is, farm animals can get infected with diseases. And the first, which is one of the popular ones, is the dropping of feces of infected animals. Animals that are infected, when they drop feces, and these feces come in contact with healthy animals can be contacted in the process. Another one is contaminated feeds in water, then contact with infected animals themselves. They can also be contacted through air or by insect bites. Animals feeding trough or drinkers can also serve as means by which animals can be infected with diseases. Now, how do we identify a diseased or sick animal in the farm? The farm animal that is diseased or sick lives and behaves in a way that helps the farmer to identify it in the farm. It does not react like others do. The following are signs that helps in identifying a sick or diseased animal. The first one is the loss of appetite. This is a very common sign the animal stops eating much. Now, persistent coughing, depending on the kind of disease. Then fever, also known as high temperature. That is, there tends to be an abnormally high temperature. Another is the watery or bad smelling blood-stained feces. This is not normal. When animals are producing this kind of signs or symptoms, the farmer should look into it. The inability to rise and sluggishness. Animal find it difficult to stand on its feet. There is also rough skin in the case of animals or cough, or drooping tail or wings in the case of birds. Now, all these are signs that shows that an animal isn't healthy. There is discharge from the eyes, nostrils, mouth, or anus. This is also not normal. The farmer should look into it. Now, emaciation, that is, the animal keeps reducing in weight. And finally, death. All these are signs to look into. Now, let's consider some diseases of farm animals. Earlier on, we talked about pathogenic diseases, that is, diseases caused by pathogens. And the first one we'll be considering among all these diseases are the viral diseases. And the first among the viral diseases is the foot and mouth disease. Now, this foot and mouth disease is caused by a virus. Of course, like I said, it's a viral disease. And the animals affected include cattle, sheep, and goats. Now, animals affected by this disease show the following symptoms. What are the signs that you can know that this animal is infected with foot and mouth disease? There are sores on feet, particularly the hoof, because it particularly affects ruminants. Then the lips also have sores, the tongue, cheek, and there is salivation, foaming, inability to eat, weakness, lameness, and death. Now, the animal can't stand on its feet. In most cases, there is salivation and the likes. All these are signs of foot and mouth disease. The animals that are particularly affected by this disease are cattle, like I said. This is a foot and mouth disease. An animal affected by foot and mouth disease. Now, the gums will be bleeding and the mouth will be foaming. That is foot and mouth disease. It particularly affects cattle. Now, this is the hoof. The hoof has sores, and this is particularly dangerous if not well looked into and treated. The animals can lose their life. Animals infected by this disease are particularly cattle, and others include sheep and goats, but it is not as lethal, that is deadly, in the likes of sheep and goats as it is in cattle. If it's not well treated, this disease can result to death of several animals. There is no cure for this disease, hence animals should be vaccinated against the disease. The treatment of this disease is particularly symptomatic, that is, you only treat the symptoms, not the disease. Like the hoof, you try to treat the hoof. Like this is neem oil, you put neem oil in the hoof to prevent infestation by worms. Now, all these are vital treatment procedures to be taken when treating foot and mouth disease. What are the mode of transmission of this disease? How does this disease get to farm animals? Transmission of foot and mouth disease in general can be transmitted by contact with infected animals. This is one of the common ways animals contact disease. So, for the farmer to prevent this, animals that are infected with this disease should be separated from the rest to prevent further contamination of the head. What are the effects of this disease? The animals that are infected by this particular disease, what happens to them? there is serious loss of animals through death. This disease is a deadly disease, and as such, there is need for the farmer to prevent it, and if it does happen, appropriate treatment should be employed immediately. Now, control measures. How do we control this? Vaccination, which is the most vital. Like I said before, this disease has no cure, so there is need to vaccinate beforehand. Then isolation of diseased animals from healthy ones. You bury animals deeply. Bury animals deeply. There is no treatment for this disease. You only vaccinate against it. So animals that are infected should be isolated and buried deeply. Rinderpest disease. This is another disease, another viral disease of cattle. It is caused by virus, and the animals affected is particularly cattle. In other cases such as sheep and goats, it is mild, that is, it is not as serious as it is in cattle and buffaloes. Cattle and buffaloes are the main animals affected by this disease. The symptoms include, among others, high fever, that is, the temperature is increasingly high. Now, blood stain shooting diarrhea. Now, this particular symptom is very vital in identifying this particular type of disease. The animal tends to experience diarrhea, that is, the bowel movement is faster than usual, and the animal tends to be defecating even when it is not willing to do such. And there will be feces all around the environment, watery feces that are stained with blood. This is a very vital symptom of rinderpest disease. Fortunately, rinderpest disease is not really that common in the world again. In fact, some persons believe it has been completely eradicated. Animals affected by this disease tends to grind their teeth. That is, there is grinding of teeth by animals infected by rinderpest disease. When it occurred years back, it was a very deadly disease, and it affected and killed lots of animals, especially in Africa and European countries. Mode of transmission. How is rinderpest disease transmitted? The first and the usual method of transmission of disease is particularly by contamination of infected animals and eating contaminated feed. So the farmer should prevent this from happening. In that way, he can control to some extent the infestation of this disease and the effects of this disease. There tends to be death of animals. When it occurred years back, like I explained earlier, it was a really deadly disease. What are the control measures of this particular disease? The first and the most important is vaccination. Now, students, I believe by now you are beginning to know. I said control measures for viral diseases is particularly through vaccination. This is because there is no cure for the disease, and as such, vaccination is the only sure way of controlling this disease. In other words, it prevents it. It does not eradicate. It does not treat or cure the disease. Now, killing and burying deeply of infected animal. Like I said earlier on, there is no treatment. Now, another disease that is equally caused by viruses is the Newcastle disease. This one is does not affect cattle and sheep like we have been discussing all along, but this one is a disease that is common with poultry, that is birds, that include ducks, hens, of course fowl, and the likes. Now, symptoms include a drop in feed intake, that is a loss of appetite, the animal stops feeding well, and there is severe respiratory difficulty. The animal finds it difficult to breathe. And one vital point to note here is neck twisting and paralysis of legs or wings of the bird. There is also laying of soft shelled eggs, the eggs that the bird lays, they are soft shell. This is an example of bird that is infected with the Newcastle disease. The neck is twisted. There is muscular paralysis, whereby the animal cannot coordinate itself properly. When it moves, it staggers. This is a bird infected with Newcastle disease. As you can see, staggering move. There's twisting of neck and staggering while in motion. Now, these are soft shell or even shellless. That is, they have no shell. These are shellless eggs laid by layers that are infected with Newcastle disease. This is a very common symptom in layers that are infected with Newcastle disease. The eggs have no shell. They are not normal eggs. They have no shell because of this disease. And this is a fowl experiencing muscular tremor because of that same disease, the Newcastle disease. In general, Newcastle disease affects only birds, like I said, that is poultry, and it is quite deadly. There is no treatment for such. Any viral disease, there is no treatment for it, except that there will be vaccination. So birds are usually vaccinated at different weeks. There is a vaccination given to chicks, there is vaccination given to growers, and there is vaccination given to adults. The animal tends to experience partial paralysis, and as time goes on, as it becomes complicated, it experiences total paralysis. What is the mode of transmission of this disease? How does this disease get transmitted from one animal to another? The first and the most common is through contact with feces of infected birds, NASA, or oral discharge from diseases. Now, this feces and NASA and oral discharge from diseased birds, when they come in contact with another bird, the disease tends to be transmitted to another bird. That is, another bird is contaminated in the process. What are the effects of this disease? There tends to be a low egg production in layers, high mortality rate. Now, the layers stop producing good quality eggs. Like I showed you earlier on, the eggs will be shellless, and the amount of egg they can produce in a week or day, it's reduced drastically. What are the control measures? The farmer needs to carry out a routine vaccination with NCD, that is Newcastle disease vaccine, and he needs to practice good sanitary practices. Well, that was fun, I believe. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and if you did, well, I'll see you in my next class. Next class will be a continuation of this topic. We'll be exploring other diseases of farm animals, particularly bacteria and protozoan disease. For now, goodbye and have a nice day.